Hi guys, I'm very tired. Um, I actually have been trying to. I have planned on making other videos as of late, but work's been kind of a pain in the butt lately. I have a really complicated schedule, and just some of the plans I had for my videos, for other film reviews, uh, didn't they just kind of fell through. So before I start with the main event, I suppose of Indiana Jones, I'll just do two quick recap re, quick recap reviews on the two movies I saw uh, beforehand. First was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Uh, I think it's not much of a surprise, but I loved it. It's just like the first one, it's very unique with its animations and its art direction and its style. But it even kind of expands upon that. Like last movie did have a unique sketchbook style and a 3D rendering, but it also had some elements of classic cartoons with Spider Ham and Japanese anime with Penny Parker. This movie went further. We had Spider Punk, who had this kind of newspaper clipping rendering to him. We had that Renaissance era Vulture, where he's looks like he's made of this olden sketch pad kind of look to him. It's a very good movie. It has a lot of heart. It's very funny, and much like most other Spider-Man related projects outside of the main Spider-Man comics, it's really good, and it really understands and likes the character, and it's kind of like a middle finger to the way Marvel's mainline comic books have been handling that character, especially with stuff like the canon events. Mayday gets a pretty major appearance in that movie. I've heard complaints from some people that apparently some of the art seems abstract, which I don't really understand. God forbid an animated movie look interesting. And I think a lot of these animated movies out do look really good, but this one looks very these movies stand out very much so. It might change a bit with the new TMNT movie coming out. But yeah, and also those poor animators. Even good movies can be made in kind of less than ideal ways. So hopefully next time we stop crunching your animators. Um, there's just a lot going on with the Hollywood system, I suppose. The other movie I saw, I didn't see it in theaters, but it was luckily on HBO Max rather quickly after it left theaters. On a side note, I'm kind of annoyed at how quickly movies just leave theaters. Even though I'm not from the era the 80s era, I was born late 90s, but even I remember when some movies would stick in theaters for a good 2 to 3 months sometimes. But anyway, outside of that, I saw Evil Dead Rise, and in my personal opinion, I felt that Evil Dead Rise was a very weak movie. Uh, Maybe I went in just kind of because expecting the usual Evil Dead flair, despite the fact that Sam Raimi technically didn't direct the movie. When I want to see an Evil Dead movie or an Evil Dead related project, I kind of hope for some batshit insanity. And there's three scenes where oh, that's very weird. That's very unique and not at all what I would have expected to happen in that movie. But outside of that, it's kind of the standard like possession horror film flair. There's a semi interesting family dynamic and theme in that movie, which I guess sort of helps it. But even then, like there are plenty of other horror movies that have done the family dynamic better. Hereditary is probably the best example of that I can think of at the top of my head. And also, just I felt like the first 5 minutes and like the last 3 minutes of that movie are completely useless. They have zero of the characters that are important to the main plot of that story, and they just kind of exist to one start the for the beginning, start the movie off with gratuitous gore. And I'm a big Mortal Kombat guy, and I like the Evil Dead movies. So when I say gratuitous, I mean like none of them are characters we care about or even know who they are or even important to the plot in any way. Say what you will about the characters throughout the main course of the movie. At least we know who they are, and like they're the people we follow throughout the movie. But yeah, we just kind of see three characters we don't know like die horrifically, and then the final scene is just to do the standard like Evil Dead run up at the camera thing. Um, so yeah, I didn't really care for Evil Dead Rise. My friend Davidson, who's probably a bigger Evil Dead fan than I am, liked it. He thought it was good, so maybe take his word above mine on that one. Um, Now for the main event, it's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. At least I hope that's the name of the movie. I'm pretty sure it is. I guess to start off by saying, I think it should go without saying, but I like Indiana Jones. I like the original Indiana Jones trilogy. I even have had some fun with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's been a while since I've seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it's been a while since I've seen Temple of Doom, but I have seen Raiders and Last Crusade, I think, in the last year or so. So it's not like Star Wars where like, oh, I can recite in the entirety of New Hope start to finish. But Indiana Jones is great. It's the quintessential action adventure movies, or at least the quintessential treasure hunting movies. Like even movies that aren't Indiana Jones are very much inspired by Indiana Jones, like the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, even though those are supposed to be based off something else, National Treasure. Um, I wasn't really excited for the movie coming out. They announced it a while ago. At least they announced that they were making a fifth movie. Not. I don't think they might. I don't think they had the idea down of what it was going to be about, other than that Disney bought Lucasfilm, and it was like, of course they're going to make another Indiana Jones movie, just like they made other Star Wars movies. And Disney, I don't want to be. I really try not to be like the standard fan you'd see complain about Disney Star Wars all the time, like the people who will like constantly stalk Kathleen Kennedy's Twitter feed just so they can make like a 20-minute rant video about it. But it's kind of hard to deny Disney messed it up. Disney's this weird paradox of being like, yes, it legitimately is the place of imagination where people who sign up for Disney make really good things like Gravity Falls, and then we get the Owl House. We have all the classic Disney animated films. We have the Disney Renaissance, Pixar. It's legitimately probably one of the greatest animation companies and one of the greatest film companies ever. But at the same time, it's kind of the terrifying corporate monolith that will push something out that feel like if a Disney movie is good, it's really good. But if a Disney movie is bad, it feels like just corporate garbage. So, and Star Wars has kind of been 50-50. I'll be fair and say Disney's been 50-50 with it, because the sequel trilogy, bad. Rogue One, fairly good. We get Star Wars Resistance, terrible show. Star Wars Rebels, really good show. EA's Battlefront 1 and 2, very bad games with terrible business practices alongside it. EA's like Jedi Survivor games and whatever the other one was called, fairly good games except for the PC ports. Sorry, PC players. Star Wars Visions, good. Star Wars Bad Batch, good. The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, good. Mandalorian Season 3, messy as hell. Andor, good. Book of Boba Fett, bad. It's kind of 50-50 with them. So, with Indian, outside of the fact that even I, like a dumb fanboy that geeks out about this stuff, I can talk with my friend Davidson about Star Wars for hours. Even I am kind of sick of just seeing stuff. I personally feel like we could. I'm totally fine with Indiana Jones inspired adventure movies. I'm completely fine with that. Do new, because Indiana Jones was already inspired by like adventure serials from like the 30s and 40s. So Indiana Jones isn't necessarily original. It is unique, especially because Spielberg and Lucas are very unique filmmakers and scriptwriters. So yeah. And just after Crystal Skull, how do I explain it? It already felt like one of those things. Like we already had the original trilogy. Sure, it's another Indiana Jones movie, but do we need another Indiana Jones movie? That was kind of the feeling going around even back 2008 when Crystal Skull was coming out. But now it's like nearly 20 years after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And Harrison Ford's even older, so the question is, do we really need another Indiana Jones movie? And constantly, and I don't want to just, granted it's inevitable to compare this with other Indiana Jones movies, but in some ways this is very comparable to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, not necessarily, mainly more so in the fact that this is like one of the main like ideas of the movie is like this is Indy like several years after his latest adventures. He's very old. He's retiring. He's not really doing a whole lot, but someone comes up to him and kind of ropes him back into the thing. That was very similar to the way Crystal Skull did it. So it's kind of like this movie was like, all right, we had a decent idea last time, but aliens happened. Even though I guess we shouldn't have been surprised because it was about the Crystal Skulls, so aliens were bound to at least be mentioned. I'm still trying to figure out what about my complete thoughts on the movie, because in many ways, I liked the movie. When I was going in, I at the very least hoped I would have just found this movie fine. I not blown away by anything, just really hoped like at least it wasn't annoying or offensive or anything. I had a lot of fun during this movie. I think it's messy at some parts. I think the ending, I'm still really not sure how to feel about. But I don't even know if I should like get into spoilers for this review. So we'll save the ending discussion for later if I want to come around to it. I'll go into the first 10 minutes because it is the first 10 minutes, and the first 10 minutes are kind of classic Indiana Jones. It's him fighting Nazis, retrieving treasures that are / losing treasures, because let's be honest, Indy's track record with keeping treasures is not as bad as Nathan Drake, but it's pretty bad. But yeah, it's granted it helps because they like digitally de-age Harrison Ford. They're getting way too good at de-aging people. It's kind of terrifying. I'm scared of what they'll try to do later. At least in my opinion. I'm sure other people have noticed like all the seams and edges and all the things wrong with that digitally de-aging effect, and they probably also used a hell of a lot of stunt doubles too. But yeah, it was very fun. I liked Indy's dynamic with the partner he had during that portion of the movie, which is weird because his partner in that portion of the movie was very clearly a Nazi in the Captain America movies, but here he's a good guy, so that's funny. Um, yeah, it's just the main point of the plot line of this movie focuses on a device created by um, Archimedes. I can't believe I almost blanked on his name. They said his name constantly. Like the it's very complicated. Even I feel bad not knowing a lot about Archimedes, other than he's a great genius of his time. But yeah, so you know, when I kind of imagine like, well, what should Indiana Jones go after next? Because like thinking of a good treasure for Indiana Jones to hunt down is it's sort of kind of the fun of these movies we because it kind of dictates where the story is ultimately going to take place in, or at least yeah, where it ultimately takes place in. I guess the themes of the movie and time and the passage of time is very much a big theme of this movie. Uh, uh, I think I'm really trying not to spoil anything right now. I'm trying to just stick to just a basic like overview of the movie. There's a lot of good action in this movie. If you want to at least go into this movie brain turned off, not thinking about it, we get the opening 10 minutes, a very good action scene set in Berlin, I believe. Well, a lot of it takes place on a train, so they really try to figure out all the ways they can make a train interesting for different for how Indiana Jones can get around that and what kind of obstacles he runs into on that. And the, outside of that scene, the chase scene, and I think it's New York at least. The chase scene in the modern day of that movie is also really good, and it involves a lot of this movie. All Indiana Jones movies do it, but I love like the constant vehicle hopping and different modes of transportation that these movies do during chase scenes. It really keeps the action interesting and constantly changes. It's just it's a very fun watch. This movie's at the very least a very fun watch. Um, I think mm, I guess just to start keep on the positives. It's of course Harrison Ford of course carries the movie. It's an Indiana Jones movie. He's the best character in the movie, no matter how hard they try with the other main lead of the movie. But granted, I get why Harrison's old. He looks great. He looks great. He's never looked bad, but he's old. He take care of the man as much as you can with these action scenes. They at least try to do interesting things with him in the action scenes. He's mainly driving all the vehicles. Um, he does use the whip at least once. I wish he'd used it more, but again, I get it. And the scene where he uses it is at least very funny. Um, what else? What else? Antonio Banderas makes an appearance in the movie. Despite how little screen time he gets, he's very fun character, and he has a lot of people he just knows around the world that you run into once in the movie, and then he kind of leaves, like the guy at the beginning of Raiders. But in Antonio Banderas scene, there's a lot of decent jokes in the movie, but in light spoilers for this part. In Antonio Banderas' like section of the movie, he mentions they have to go underwater at one point, and they go, "Oh hey, look, I think that's an eel," and then and apparently Andy's fear of snakes translates to eels, and like one of the like the kid's sidekick in the movie goes like, "Hey, eels look a lot like snakes." No, they don't. So I like that. I thought that was funny. Just I guess I'll go on to kind of my gripes with the movie. If it seems like I didn't have a lot of positives in the movie, I generally have fun with the movie. I'm just still having a hard time processing the movie. I feel like, especially since I had work today, so it was kind of a long day, and just generally it's, how do I say this? Generally, the best I could say about this movie is fun. It has a lot of good set pieces. Um, the, well, I guess I am going on more about the positives of the movie. A lot of good set pieces. Um, the sunken ship they go in at one point. The idea about the artifact they're hunting down is very interesting. Um, the villain, I think, again, it's another Nazi, so it's not. It's just like, oh, he's just a douchebag, but they at least kind of like do, especially since the movie takes, I think it's the '60s or at least like very early '70s. The movie sort of they don't outright say it, but it sort of touches upon Project Paperclip, because the Mad Mikkelsen is the main villain of the movie, and he was a Nazi back in World War II, but in the present day of the movie, he was actually instrumental in helping NASA create one of its rocket ships and eventually getting to the moon. So there's that. And Matt Mikkelsen, even if his roles aren't, the characters he's playing aren't that particularly interesting, he's still just a very good actor, and he's a weird looking guy, so you kind of can't take your eyes off him. He's just kind of not smarmy looking, but he's a very weird looking guy. So I guess it's that sort of ties into my gripes of the movie. Especially during the first portion of the movie, of the first third of the movie entering the second third of the movie, there's a lot of plot lines and ideas that are set up in the beginning that are actually really interesting and really cool, that kind of like feel completely dropped and forgotten by the final act of the movie. I bring up the idea of Mad Mikkelsen's character being a part of Project Paperclip. The chase scene in New York kind of gets him kicked out of favor with the U.S. government, so he's just kind of on his own. So it feels like, well, it's not even really like a bad guy pretending to be a good guy in the eyes of, the government. He's just he's just the bad guy. So they could have done something like Indiana Jones is going up against a Nazi who is kind of taking it under the guise of being like a good American scientist. He helped create the rocket that got people up to the moon. That kind of dynamic is thrown off, and that could have helped, because especially since there's a plot line in this movie where Indiana Jones is like, the reason why he's going after the Archimedes dial is because he kind of gets set up. He gets framed for murder at his college, and it's like, oh wow, that's Indiana Jones, the great American hero, is now being on the run from the American government, from the police. His arch enemy works for the American government, but it's like all that like we kind of by the end of the movie, like I'm especially wondering, is like, did we ever prove Indy was innocent to them? So that kind of, sorry for the spoilers, but I guess it's kind of that time. Uh, Talking about drop plot lines is kind of warranting explaining spoilers, I suppose. Um, the lead female heroine of the movie is kind of annoying. She's kind of overly sarcastic and rude. I understand that, especially like her plot of the movie is her learning to be less selfish. She kind of screws over Indy a lot in this movie, but she's like, the movie ends with her basically like really helping Indy. Um, but yeah, she's a little too like kind of overly cocky and rude to him at, in the movie, so that's a little annoying. Um, the kid is fine for the most part. I'm actually one of those people that kind of like Short Round. I know Short Round's kind of annoying, but um, it's fine. I thought he was kind of cool. He drives a car. That's cool. And this kid also drives a car. But if you want to get into my negative about the kid, is at one point he flies a plane, despite the fact that flying a plane and driving a car, I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure they're very different things. So, and that's something that, like, oh well, that's just kind of nitpicky. Of course, who cares if he should know how to fly a plane or not? It's very integral to like the last action scene of the movie, and like how we assume Indy and the main female heroine get out of that. It's like just the kid flies a plane at one point. It's just kind of stupid. I guess not as stupid as nuking the fridge, but um, yeah, kind of dumb. Granted, I guess all these movies have kind of stupid moments in it, so who knows. Um, and then I don't want to spoil the ending because the movie did just come out. Um, at the very least, I will say as a positive for the ending, it's kind of fan servicey, but it's fan servicey that I like. At the last like 3 minutes is very fan servicey. That I like, but like the main major last action scene is what I'm talking about. If you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. But that particular scene, for a positive on it, like it's very. I was very worried the movie was going to go one way, and thankfully it doesn't go that way. It goes the other way. It was just weird that it happened. I don't know how to talk about it without spoiling it. Uh, it's sort of, I guess, like to avoid it but still talk about it, I'll talk about like themes, the theming of it. I guess this whole movie, Indy's kind of like regretting a lot of his past mistakes. We don't see Shia LaBeouf, but we find out that his character, the his Indy's son from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we found out that he was enlisted in the army and that he died at one point. Sorry, spoilers, but that's something that ended up ruining Indy's relationship with Marion, and it's just that's kind of where Indy's at this point. He's very much kind of like, especially also the fact that he's an archaeologist, he's constantly thinking about the past. He's constantly fixated on the past. Not only about like the intriguing stuff that happened in the past, but his own past and like all the things he wished he could have done. So it was like, in terms of like thematic purposes, I kind of like the idea of like Indy is like very much like sort of wanting to live in sort of wanting to just focus on the past instead of like trying to move forward and focus on his future and trying to like better his future. So that's kind of fun. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, it's just that whole scenario. Granted, an Indiana Jones movies have always kind of had batshit endings, like spectacular moments. So I guess I shouldn't be too surprised, but it's still a lot. It's still hard for me to swallow what happens in this movie. But to get off the ending, I guess just focus more on what I liked about the movie. It just feels like Indiana Jones. Like, granted, this movie is not directed by George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. They executive produced it because obviously they did, but Lucas is retired, and I think Spielberg didn't even want to do Spielberg didn't even want to do King of the Crystal Skull, so I doubt that he wanted to do this. In some ways, you can kind of notice that a different person directed this movie, but I still feel like the essence of Indiana Jones is felt in the movie. It's just a very fun adventure movie. The music, John Williams is still there, or at least they're reusing all of John Williams' beats from the original movies. But just hearing the Indiana Jones music again on the big screen. Granted, I could probably go to a Belcourt and watch an old Indiana Jones movie and experience that, but just the experience of hearing this music in a major theater, because I never got to see any of the Indiana Jones movies in theaters. So just to hear like probably one of the most classic film soundtracks of all time in a theater is a lot of fun. It's especially walking out of the theater while the Indiana Jones theme plays just feels right. It feels like, you know what? Yeah, I did have a good time with the movie. Um, yeah, I guess in terms of discussion of the future of this franchise, there's sort of like a half hint at maybe there might be some more. Maybe there might be some more indie movies. Um, as someone who loves Indiana Jones, as someone who is a major fanboy, as someone who doesn't, not to say I don't mind reboots and remakes, I sort of do, but as someone who's always kind of willing to give different interpretations of an old idea a chance, I feel like it is time to let Harrison hang up the hat. It's a nice goodbye. I know Disney. I know you want to make more. For the love of God, don't. I also know you're probably thinking of at least doing spinoffs. It's like, yeah, Harrison's too old, but we could do like a short round like Disney Plus show. Please, for the love of God, don't. Nothing against that actor, and I like short rounds, but for the love of God, don't. Um, it's just make another adventure character, please, for the love of God. They're probably gonna, guys. They are probably gonna do like a Disney Plus show of like the Young Adventures of Indiana Jones. That's the harsh reality we gotta live with, but I hope to God I can ignore Disney Plus shows. That's why I'm probably behind on the MCU. But I don't want to see another Indiana Jones movie. People. I'm surprised critics are harder on this movie than the audience is, because normally with fanboys are fucking vicious, man. Sorry for the F word, Mom, but it's the truth. Fanboys on the internet are vicious little snakes, and I'm surprised like the audience score is like 89% last I checked. 89% to like of for the audience score, and like 68% for the critics. That's at least Rotten Tomatoes. So, and granted, you could take or leave Rotten Tomatoes, so who really cares? But that's just something I'm a little surprised about. Um, yeah, I think that's, if you want to try to like encapsulate my whole feelings on this movie is definitely better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It is absolutely better than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I'm okay with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as a film. It didn't ruin my childhood. The aliens are stupid, but what do you expect? It probably doesn't hold up. It definitely doesn't hold up to Raiders or Last Crusade. I don't know if this movie is better than Temple of Doom. It has been a while since I've seen Temple of Doom, but this movie, if you at least like, if you are fine with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, you'll be fine with this movie. That doesn't sound like high praise, but I'm being serious. I think this movie is at the very least fun. And you know what? That is ultimately what Indiana Jones is. You can analyze a lot of plot details and themes in these movies, and you would reasonably have a lot to talk about. They are very good movies. I'm especially a huge fan of Last Crusade, but these are ultimately pure, with love, pure action adventure movies. These are probably the best action adventure movies, I'd say. So, and I think this movie sort of stands not on the level, but I feel like it has that spark. I'm sorry to sound kind of like the pretentious critic of using the vague essence of what makes something good. It's heart, it's the spark. But you know what? Sometimes the pretentious like descriptions of what makes a movie good and what doesn't, sometimes that's just the case. That's the best way to describe it. This movie has a spark. It has something to it. And you know what? I don't regret seeing it. I got home very late last night because I saw it very late. I saw it like 8 o'clock and I didn't get home until like 11:23. And I have work today, so I didn't go into work like hating myself for that decision. I had fun at the movie. The ending, I really want to talk to you guys about the ending, so to probably better articulate if that works, if that last action scene works or not. My mom's watching this. I'm gonna watch this video. I already know she's not gonna watch this movie. To her, it's Raiders, maybe Last Crusade. I mean, yeah, that's fine. But I will at the very least say I did not regret seeing it. So sorry for this more rambly, unfocused kind of review. It's not as well done as my Super Mario Brothers movie review. Granted, I feel like I have more to say without spoiling anything in that movie. There's a lot to spoil in this movie, and also just the lead up to why I even had to make a video about the Mario Brothers movie was a bigger deal than just, I didn't really want to see this movie, but my friend invited me. I guess I didn't mention that, but thank you, Luke, for taking me to see that movie. I'm sorry I didn't really get to talk to you about it, but I guess this video is sort of my thoughts on that. Yeah, so sorry for the rambly review. Hopefully, next movie I see, I'll have a better review, a more focused review. I am seeing Jaws in a few days. I don't know if I should even really bother making a video about that. It's Jaws. Everyone's seen Jaws. If you haven't seen Jaws, you are doing yourself a major disservice by not seeing Jaws. Maybe I'll say it because I love Jaws. So, and that's another Steven Spielberg thing. So like, it all ties together. But outside of that, future movie reviews going ahead. I don't really know what. I guess that the new Ninja Turtles movie is coming out. Oppenheimer and Barbie both look like good movies. For some reason, the Barbie movie looks really clever and funny. So maybe I do have to see that and make a video on it. It'll be since I'm kind of like off the MCU wagon. It's kind of fun to watch other movies. I still love superheroes, in case you're all wondering, but you know, the other movies need time in the spotlight too. That's just my thought. You can have your superhero movies. I really hope that James Gunn's new DC universe is good, but who knows? Until then, I guess I'm a free man. I don't have an obligation. I'm sorry, Guardians 3. I'm sorry I missed Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but you know what? Seeing other movies is fun. Expand your tastes, everyone, and have a good night.